37 is dropping really soon, but is she really worth your pulls? Welcome back to Corky Yachas, and in this video we're going to discuss the topic on whether 37 is worth pulling for, some of the reasons for and also against pulling for 37, as well as my personal take on it. But first up, we need to understand what 37 do. So 37 is a star type 6-star hyper carry, and her main highlight is going to be Genesis damage. So looking at her skill, first we have the triangulation. This is her first skill. This skill basically is a one target attack that deals 140%, 210%, as well as 350% mental damage, but it also comes with an element of Genesis damage, 40%, 60%, and 100% respectively. And as you can tell, the Genesis damage multiplier is really low, and you might be wondering, hey Corky, what is Genesis damage? So basically, right, Genesis damage is a damage type that ignores defense. So naturally, it should be lower in multiplier. Otherwise, it will be very OP, right? Because a lot of the later game stages like Limbo, U2, they boast a lot of high mental defense, reality defense, but Genesis damage straight up ignore it. So this is really strong, and also why the multipliers are generally lower. Now moving on, next we have a second skill, and that is curve mapping. This is instead a mass attack, and this deals 70% mental damage, 105% as well as 175% mental damage, plus Genesis damage, 40%, 60%, 100% once again. So the multipliers for Genesis damage is consistent, right? 40, 60, 100, and this time around it's to 2 enemies. And also additionally, 37 will gain a stack of sturdiness, and as you guys know, right, sturdiness basically is damage resistance plus 25%. So this helps her with a sustainability, since 37 is considered to be relatively frail when compared to other units. So you really need this sturdiness factor. Now lastly, we're going to have her ultimate Kingdom of Geometry, and unlike other carries, her ultimate actually is a mass buff. It doesn't do damage. It grants 2 stacks of Numerical Perception to all of the allies, and what Numerical Perception does is basically just attack plus 10%. Think of it as rousing morale because it is stack based, and also additionally gains for 37 herself 2 stacks of Enlightenment. What this does is the incantation's additional Genesis damage that will plus 100%. So this is also stack based, 2 stacks. So this is what boosts her Genesis damage further, and also she gains 2 Eureka. And at this point, if you're wondering, hey, what is Eureka? Good question. So we have to take a look at her insight. Basically, after using an incantation, she gains Eureka plus 1. After another ally takes an extra action, she gains another Eureka. When at 5 Eureka, consumes 5 Eureka to cast this follow-up attack called Supplementary Formula, and this does 120% mental damage plus 40% Genesis damage to all enemies. And this attack is a follow-up attack, but it does not grant any additional Eureka. So this Eureka system, right, basically maxed out at 5, and it will automatically cast the follow-up attack if you use an incantation and you are at 5. So definitely an additional system to track. This is unique to 1.4 characters, and of course in the future Isra also has this factor, and I'm going to expect more characters in the future to have Eureka systems as well. So over here, next we're going to talk about Insight 2. Insight 2 is basically critical damage plus 15% when a caster enters battle. 37 is really a crit unit, and you're going to see it as well in her Insight 3. Insight 3, when entering battle, crit rate plus 20%, all Genesis damage applied through incantations can critically hit. So she's the only character so far that can critically hit with Genesis damage, which also means this is her advantage, this is her edge. So if she doesn't crit with her Genesis damage, right, like I mentioned, right, the multipliers are very low, so if she doesn't crit, it's really mediocre, even if it ignores the defense aspects of the enemy. So this is where the main factor comes in, pairs really well with 2 Fairy, of course, with a critical kit, and also it's going to be further boosted by Portrays. At P0, it's not going to crit that easily, but at higher resonance and at higher Portrays, you're going to have an easier time maintaining this advantage that she has. And talking about Portrays, for her Portrays, she is considered a unit that has really significant Portrait boost, and at P1, she's going to gain an additional crit rate 20%. Like I mentioned, right, her edge is in critting. She doesn't crit, it's not going to be as good, so 20% crit rate is really huge for her. And next, for P2, it's going to be the follow-up attack increase multipliers, right? So from 120% it's going to go to 180%, and from 40% it's going to go to 60% for Genesis damage. It's pretty huge, by the way. I think P2 is 20% increase if I'm not wrong, and P1 is like a 10% increase, and P3 is going to boost her Kingdom of Geometry, which is her ultimate, and it's going to make her gain 3 stacks of Enlightenment instead of 2, and also gain additional Eureka. It's going to be increased to 3. So this is really a significant boost as well. Every single portrait is really significant and helps her increase the output of Genesis damage, which is her main highlight. For P4, once again, her follow-up attack is going to be further boost to 240%, and the Genesis aspect is going to be boosted to 80%. And lastly, for P5, once again, the ultimate is going to be further boost, right? Numeral Perception, the attack boost for the allies is going to be increased to 3 stacks, and also Eureka gain is increased to 4, which means that once she casts ultimate, right, pretty much the next attack is definitely going to have a follow-up aspect, and it's going to be boosted by your ultimate. So this is really where the OP-ness of the portraits come in for 37. Now with 37's kit out of the way, next we are going to compare her to other units, and I think the best comparison for hyper carry is going to be on DPM. And over here you can see this is the DPM charts by Icehood. The calculations are made by him, so credits to him from NGA. And also there is a further detailed video that's touching on all of this DPM chart, so if you're interested you can go see this later on. But in this video we're just going to focus on dual target DPM and compare her to other units to see how she fares. So you can see over here, right, the top of the charts is going to be conquered by our 1.6 Qingyang, and our 37 is actually more in the middle of the pack. It's around 7.5k, and you're wondering why this 8k is. She actually gives buff to the teammates, hence it also includes in the assisted number. So 8k, not too shabby to be honest. And one notable comparison that I want to point out here is between her 37 and also Charlie. You can see here Charlie in fact boasts higher DPM compared to 37. However, one thing to note, the Charlie over here is max portrait. So of course, right, even if she is max portrait for 5-star unit, it's easier for them to get max portrait. So you can really see, right, 37 actually don't shine that brightly when compared to other alternatives that you have in the star department, right? Even against regulars, although the sub DPS is being favored over here since they have less move, still it's higher than her. It's definitely not a good look for 37 at all. However, one thing that I want to point out is if you notice, right, from all of these charts over here, you can see there are aspects of this Genesis damage. This is Genesis damage. 37 has the most Genesis damage, and of the other factors, right, you can see Jessica also have Genesis damage, but that is from a poison aspect. I'm not sure how consistent that is going to be, but regardless, 37 is pretty much just going to attack with Genesis damage from her incantations. Hence, this is a very reliable source. This is a very consistent source. And as I mentioned just now, right, Genesis damage is an attack type that ignores defend. Hence, the higher the defend it is, the less it is beneficial for other units, and the more it is beneficial for 37. This is the average limbo defense that they are taking to calculate right now. Hence, you can think of this chart as pretty accurate, right? She is just mid when it comes to against this 2 target enemies, and you can see for yourself, right, there's not that many users that are actually below her when it comes to damage factor already. So really, right now, Genesis damage doesn't boast that much of an advantage against other units, especially since the multipliers are kind of low, and on top of that, if you do not crit with 37, right, she is just not going to shine as brightly as compared to just a 5-star unit in Charlie. Now with that said, right, you might be thinking, hey Corky, you just said that she's kind of mid, right, just Genesis damage, it's not really that huge, not much content need her, so why do you want to actually pull for her? And the reason is very simple, and it is just simply for Sea Serpent rate. So that is extremely clear. If you want to pull for 37, the reason is going to be for rate, and it's for Sea Serpent. It has ran 3 times so far. Honestly, the rates will keep coming back, so if you were to pull 37 for rate purpose, it will continue to serve you well until the end of time, right? Because 37 will just keep being the unit that you can use to rely on to get triple S for Sea Serpent rate, and it's just going to continue running and running and running. Every couple patch, I believe it will just return again, right? So this is one big factor. The second thing also that I think a lot of people should consider is what we are talking about so far about her being mid is about her being a hyper carry. So in the future, we're going to have Qingyang, and a lot of people have talked about forming a team whereby 37 is going to support Qingyang, and 37 kind of fits that role, right? If you think about it, she's just going in with her inside, her passive follow-up attacks, gaining Eureka when Qingyang follow-up attacks, and Qingyang really follow-up attacks a lot, so she's going to gain all this passive follow-up attacks, and it's going to just keep going without her using any AP at all. And when she has the ultimate, she's going to use that to boost Qingyang's attack, and this is going to fit really well as a support unit. So from now, her release on 1.4 is going to be more of a main carry, but once we have Chinyang, and if you can really slot in the team, right, without that many disables, then you definitely want 37 as an AP general support for Chinyang, and for that reason, I think she is definitely worth pulling for. And also, right, one thing to take note of is, like I mentioned, whether there is going to be future content that has a high amount of defense, right? I'm definitely going to expect that this is going to happen. Of course, just talking about right now, we can't really assume that is going to be the case. Hence, I think the main two reasons is one for raids and second one is for a support for Chinyang. Now, on the flip side, right, once we've talked about the reasons why you should be pulling for 37, there is also reasons why you should skip, and the first one is going back to the point as a main carry that is really not that useful outside of raids. If you're not focused on raids, you probably don't want to pull for 37. And also, if you have alternatives, right, like I've mentioned, showing you guys the comparisons with the DPM charts, if you have a P5 Charlie, you can pretty much use her to actually triple S your Sea Serpent raid. You don't have to rely on 37. Or if you have a really good star team, you have Regulus plus Voyager. Those two units itself, Voyager actually have a high amount of Genesis damage as well, and Regulus is extremely good as a sub DPS as well. So two of these units, right, can combine to form a hyper carry in that sense for Sea Serpent raid, and then you can follow up with 6 and 2 fairy. So this is going to be a raid aspect. If you have alternatives, you don't really need 37, to be honest, right? The only thing you can't really replace is Chinyang support. However, Chinyang support, you can use a debuffer, right? You don't really have to just slot in 37 for sure. I think a debuffer is also going to do well. If you slot in Beacon, the debuff is going to work extremely well against enemies to lower their defense, and Chinyang is going to output a lot more damage from that perspective, not relying on the follow-up attacks of 37 to supplement her damage. And also, lastly, it is going to be the reason that a lot of people are skipping, and that is because 6 is also coming in the same patch, right? This is also a reason that I give for Charmaine. In this game, the limited currency is going to drive a lot of people crazy, and with 6 arrival shortly after 37, I'm assuming there's no banner swap, it's going to mean that if you cannot guarantee 6, I will pretty much skip 37. This is a hard reality or harsh reality. But the good thing is that you can potentially actually just gamba, right, since it comes one after the other. So if you gamba like 10 pulls, 20 pulls, you still have enough pulls for 6, then you can go for it. If you don't get it, so be it. Just get the PT, and then the PT will build on to 6, and you will just get 6 that way. If you get it within 10 pulls, 20 pulls, pretty much you have earned your 37 with a discount. So you really want this scenario to occur. So this is how you can approach it from a win-win scenario. And these are the various reasons why you should pull and why you should skip 37. And me personally, I definitely have enough pulls. Also, I'm quite focused on raids, and like I mentioned, I do not actually have a good star team. So without that, I definitely have to rely on 37 to actually get my triple S. And honestly, right, a lot of people say, is it worth it just for that bit of extra reward? I personally go from a achievement perspective, right? This is just how I personally approach the game. I try to clear as much as possible, and all of my resources are going to be dedicated towards that. If it meant pulling 37 just to get an extra rank for a raid, I'm going to do it regardless. And of course, do let me know in the comment section below whether you are skipping or pulling for 37. Also, if you're looking at 37, you definitely want to look at raids. So definitely check out this video where I break down all the raids in 1.4 so that you can secure your triple S rank. I'll see you guys over there. This is Cocky Gachas, signing off.